Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take your source material, pull out the critical insights, and give you the shortcut to being truly well-informed.
Today, we are immersing ourselves fully into the world of Laura Nowlin's pretty devastating novel, If He Had Been With Me. This is a book that, right from the jump, it signals its intent.
It really does.
It's a deep dive into identity, the absolute agony of mistiming, and the ultimate heartbreaking power of that one single question: what if?
That's the perfect way to frame it. I mean, the source material you provided included the cover art, and it's profoundly haunting. You've got these two red candy heart lollipops. One is perfect, and the other is just completely smashed.
Yeah.
And that visual tells you everything. You, the reader, you know this is a story about a devastating broken love, and that the tragedy is already a foregone conclusion, before you even read a single word.
Exactly. So our mission today, I think, is not just to run through the plot, but to really dissect the complex, decade-spanning relationships and the really intense psychological struggles of the protagonist, Autumn.
Right.
We have to focus on how her choices about her identity, her inability to accept, real connection, how that all ultimately creates the very tragedy she then spends the rest of her life just lamenting.
And the whole story starts with that lament. It frames everything. The title itself, If He Had Been With Me, is her core belief. It's her mantra. If he had been with me, everything would have been different.
And this is where Nowlin, the author, immediately sets up the literary framework. We're told the facts of the accident right up front. It happened on a slick, rainy August night. The victim, Phineas Smith, he was driving, arguing with his girlfriend at the time, Sylvie. But Autumn makes it clear we aren't just reading a sad story about an accident. We're reading about the causality.
The why.
The why. The crucial thing she points out is that the cause of that argument is the story that lurks between the facts. We're being invited to trace this whole emotional history, this unspoken, hidden life that led to that moment.
So we have to trace that emotional causality. Okay, let's start at the beginning then, with her earliest memories and this constant tension between who she was and who she thought she needed to be. Let's start with Autumn's dual identity.
Yeah, her self-perception is established really early, and it's just this constant internal friction. On one hand, she was always told she was pretty.
Right.
And that was a fact she just accepted about herself, kind of like knowing her middle name was Rose or that she was left-handed. It was just this pleasant, established truth that adults always focused on.
But she says that being pretty was poor consolation. Why? Because it didn't change what she felt was her defining characteristic, especially to her peers, which was that she was weird.
And she hates it. She says she never tried to be weird. It's this really crippling feeling for her. Like she was, and this is a quote, born without the ability to understand if the things she was about to say or do were strange.
Wow.
It creates this profound sense of being trapped. She's just forced into constantly being herself, but it's a self she can't control or, understand in relation to everyone else. And her being pretty by quirk just kind of gave people an excuse for it.
It made it acceptable.
Exactly. It's that whole societal narrative that says, oh, she's allowed to be quirky because, look at her.
That's a great point. It's like external validation immediately warps her whole sense of self-worth. She's even trying to categorize the strangeness herself. She goes to her guidance counselor, Mrs. Morganson, right?
She does. And after a moment of surprise, Mrs. Morganson just writes, freelance writer, under her smiling Polaroid picture.
And Autumn just kind of accepts it.
Yeah, she agrees it's close enough, but then her mind immediately goes right back to that original tension. She wonders if the counselor would have even cared as much if she had been ugly as well as odd.
So even her future, her career path, is tied to how her looks soften the blow of her personality.
It's always a buffer.
Okay, let's pivot to the one time she felt that her strangeness was understood and validated and safe. Let's talk about the golden age, the before, with Finny. This is the foundation of the whole book.
It's the anchor. In her memory, childhood is just this perpetual summer light, and it's all defined by Finny being there. He was her constant, her partner.
Not just friends.
No, not just friends. They were co-conspirators,
Yeah.
hiding under bushes, up in trees. They had this whole nonverbal language of play and mutual protection. She even remembers him literally rescuing her from snowballs, establishing him as her guardian from day one.
And they were so inseparable that their parents, she calls them the mothers, they basically functioned as two houses and four people. It was one big shared family. Finny was there for every single holiday.
And we get this subtle little character note about Finny through the gifts his absent father sends. These expensive, unfathomable things, like custom golf clubs.
Right.
And Finney, even as a kid, he would just shrug and set them aside. It suggests that he was also looking for connection, not stuff, stability. And he found that with Autumn and their shared family.
So that unshakable bond defines her early life, but then it cracks. Let's talk about the middle school rift, the divide that really starts in 8th grade.
This is such a crucial turning point because it wasn't a big fight. It was like social necessity. Suddenly, in 8th grade, Autumn's weirdness became acceptable to a new group, the clique.
And she was just desperate for it.
Utterly. She was driven by this powerful thirst for external admiration, for girlfriends, a kind of social status that Finney, as her one single constant, he just couldn't provide.
She says she drank it up as if I had been thirsting for it for years. That's a really profound admission. She's trading this deep, quiet connection with Finney for the fleeting high of being popular.
And the consequence is this slow, agonizing separation. They start taking different classes. They stop studying together. She says the silence between them was like another brick in the wall going up between us.
And the most tragic part is she says it wasn't a choice. Not really.
Exactly.
So the motivation isn't a conscious rejection of him. It's just desperation and social drift. She accidentally abandons her true north because she needed other people to confirm she wasn't too weird.
It's the foundational mistake of her life. She trades authenticity for approval, and this leads directly into her high school years, which are just defined by this constructed, almost performative misfit aesthetic.
Yeah, we see her go all in on the odd girl look in high school, the black hair, silver spray-painted boots, the shredded black dress. She sees it as being thrilled to finally be allowed to be myself.
But you're right to call it performative. She's self-aware enough to know she's just conforming to a new set of rules, being odd as long as it fits in with her new group.
And that brings us to the tiara. That's such a critical symbol. She finds this cheap silver rhinestone tiara and just decides to wear it every day.
Just because she likes the object itself, it's separate from its whole homecoming court meaning.
So let's delve into that symbolism a little bit. It's not just an aesthetic thing. It's like, it's a sign of her self-defined royalty in the kingdom of the misfits. But it's more than that, right? It's about control.
Absolutely. The tiara is a crown of a chosen identity. She felt like her old identity, Finney's friend, the weird girl, that was something that was assigned to her. By wearing the tiara, she's declaring an identity she chose. She is the queen of odd.
It's a defense mechanism.
It's a shield, a visible shield that says, I am defined by my own eccentricity, so your judgment doesn't matter. It's a really powerful tool for someone who feels trapped in their own strangeness.
And it also highlights how disconnected her family is. Her own dad barely notices it. He asks if she's the sugar plum fairy or something.
Yeah, it just underscores how long she's been wearing this symbol without the people closest to her even registering the change.
And this whole high school identity is tied up with Jamie. He's the leader of this new odd group. He's charming, handsome, and he's super protective of Autumn. He's her pragmatic choice.
That's a perfect way to put it. Pragmatic. She has substituted the emotional safety she had with Finney for the social safety she gets from Jamie.
Let's talk about that idea of pragmatic love as a defense mechanism. She says she loves him, but sometimes she doesn't feel it. She admits she loves him most when she's scared he's going to leave her.
Which isn't love. That's need.
Exactly. It's desperation masquerading as affection. Her whole reason for being with him is rooted in the search for external validation and, critically, for stability. She's running from the instability she saw in her own home.
And she says it so perfectly. Jamie is perfect and his life will be perfect, so if I am a part of his life, then I will be perfect too.
Perfection feels safer than authentic, messy love. And that whole quest for a perfect life completely dictates her struggle with physical intimacy. Jamie wants to have sex, but she keeps holding out for some special moment.
It's some fantasy. A gilt canopy bed. A view of the Eiffel Tower.
Right.
She can't reconcile the romantic ideal she has in her head, which, comes directly from the books she's always reading, with the messy reality of his room, with the rock posters and the dirty socks.
The real world rejects her perfect narrative.
Yes. If the setting isn't perfect, then the outcome might be imperfect. And for Autumn, imperfection feels like chaos. It feels like vulnerability.
So now let's contrast that carefully controlled world with Finney's world, the one she deliberately left behind.
Finney is everything she rejected.
Yeah.
He's preppy, he's blonde, he's on the varsity soccer team as a freshman, he's dating Sylvie Whitehouse, the cheerleader. The absolute epitome of the normal world Autumn abandoned.
And all that tension finally boils over in sophomore year during what she calls the war.
Yeah, Finny publicly claims their old cafeteria table for his group, for Sylvie and Alexis. And Autumn sees this as this huge personal betrayal, even though they hadn't actually sat there together in years.
But it's intensely personal because it forces her to confront the physical separation. When she confronts him, she talks about the broken look in his eyes when Sylvie's name comes up.
It's Finny forcing a response.
Yeah.
He's demanding she acknowledge the walls they built. It just proves that all that history between them is simmering right below the surface, ready to boil over.
In this social world, it also shows the the dangerous power of her new friend group, the clique. We see them actively manipulate one of their friends' relationships just to bring someone back into the fold.
Right, with Alex and Sasha.
Yeah.
They operate with this collective, calculated force.
And Autumn has this moment of almost ominous realization there. She understands that their friendship is this powerful, woven thing, but that it's also deeply fragile.
She sees that if they ever separated, if those bonds were pulled away, they would be ripped and shredded, torn.
Yeah.
She knows her identity is reliant on them, and the foundation is super shaky.
That feeling is underscored by Angie's storyline, which is a great counterpoint. While Autumn is trapped in this slow, controlled relationship with Jamie, Angie has this quick courtship with a preppy guy, gets pregnant, and marries him in a courthouse.
Angie's path is rapid, it's imperfect, but it's an authentic commitment to life. It just highlights the emotional stagnation in Autumn's life, where she's just waiting for the perfect storybook moment while the real, messy world just moves on without her.
She is always prioritizing the narrative over reality.
Always.
And speaking of messy reality, this is when real-life crises hit home. Let's dive into the family crisis and how that impacts Autumn's mental health, because that strips away all her control.
We see these subtle signs of her mother's depression, and Autumn, the writer, the observer, she's the first to notice them. They're small things. Folded laundry that stays in the basket, frozen vegetables instead of fresh, her mom not wearing makeup.
And those small details are so important because they signal that the meticulous control Autumn's mother had over their home, the very perfection Autumn is trying to replicate with Jamie, is slipping.
And that domestic chaos leads to her parents fighting more and eventually their divorce. This is the instability. This is the terror that Autumn has been running from her whole life.
The crisis culminates in her being forced to see a psychiatrist, Dr. Singh. And the conversation is so clinical and jarring. Questions about appetite, waking up early, suicidal thoughts.
And Dr. Singh provides that crucial clinical detail that people who wake up early are often struggling with deep depression and suicidal ideation. Autumn resists the label. She's terrified of becoming her mother, but she does admit to feeling sad every day. A sadness she thinks she deserved.
That self-punishment is key.
It is. She feels she deserves it because she knows deep down that she made the wrong choices. She abandoned Finny, she's chasing a false ideal, and the emotional debt is now coming due.
And amidst all this chaos, she's struggling with her future. She's a writer. She loves Irish authors. She wins a poetry contest. She desperately wants to be a published author. But that desire clashes with her need for stability.
So she acknowledges that making a living as a writer is nearly impossible. She's leaning towards something practical, like teaching. But this is where Finny unexpectedly steps in.
Right.
He shows this enduring insight into who she really is.
Yeah.
During a conversation, he just tells her that teaching is too normal for her, and he actively encourages her to write.
That validation coming from the one person who knew her weird creative self better than anyone, that had to be such a powerful counterweight to Jamie's stabilizing but also kind of dampening influence.
Meanwhile, Finny's own dreams have shifted. He's moved on from the childhood soccer dream to these practical but deeply compassionate roles. Medical school, pediatrics, Doctors Without Borders, psychiatry.
He has this inherent desire to help people.
It's the same protective nature he showed when he was shielding her from snowballs all those years ago.
And the connection between them, despite the years of social distance, it's undeniably growing in these small, symbolic ways, like the Christmas tiara.
Yes. Finny personally picked out that snowflake tiara for her, even though they barely talk. That gesture, it transcends their high school roles. It's a silent acknowledgement of her true self, an acceptance of her oddity.
And that slow burn connection, it just culminates so beautifully and painfully during the 4th of July fireworks scene. She's forced to sit between her dad and Finny, who's with Sylvie. The physical space is so awkward and charged.
And instead of watching the fireworks, Autumn shares this profound, quiet moment with Finny. They stare at the lake and they share this obscure memory from the before.
The frozen fish.
The frozen fish that Finny caught, and they remember poking its frozen bubble eye.
It's such a specific, almost bizarre detail. Why is that specific memory so powerful?
Because it confirms the enduring nature of their shared nonverbal language. They can communicate the deep truth of their past through the shared memory of a dead fish. And in that moment, they realize the space between them, the gap enforced by Jamie and Sylvie. It isn't fair. It was supposed to be just us family,
They belong together.
regardless of the identities they built in high school.
And that emotional undercurrent, that confirmation of the title's whole premise, it finally forces its way to the surface when Autumn is violently freed from her relationship with Jamie.
On graduation day, he calls her the next morning, and the breakup is just textbook cruelty, rooted in deflection. He blames her neediness, her depression. I can't be who you need me to be.
He can't handle the messiness of her true self. His perfection was always conditional.
And then comes the dagger, the ultimate betrayal that shatters her whole world. Sasha and I have discovered that we have feelings for each other.
And Autumn's reaction is so telling. She laughs. She just laughs in shock at the word discovered because it's so ridiculously dramatic and literary for what's just a petty betrayal.
It's this immediate, intense clash between her literary ideals and the ugly reality. She slams the door and says she'll never, ever be your friend again. She's shutting the door on her entire high school identity.
But before she can completely spiral, and given her history, the risk is massive. Finny immediately steps in. He fulfills his lifelong role as her constant protector.
He shows up right away. He brings her favorite mint chocolate chip ice cream. He tells her, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
And he sets up this routine of daily hangouts to distract her from calling Jamie.
It's an intense, focused effort to keep her safe.
And we realized this protective nature has been there all along. We learned Finny was the one who called her when she was drunk at that Halloween party, making her promise to drink water.
And telling her, don't have sex with Jamie while you're drunk.
He was actively monitoring her safety even when she was with her own boyfriend.
So this new routine, the shared space, it allows the truth to finally come out. For 5 days, she just reads on his bed while he plays video games. She watches him from her window at night and finds safety from hurting myself. The emotional safety is everything.
And it's her writing that brings it all to a head. She's working on her novel about Aiden and Izzy, which is basically their story. Finny reads it, and he uses it to finally confront her, to ask her why she abandoned him after 8th grade.
And she finally owns her part in it. She apologizes for being stupid and selfish. She admits her need for admiration caused the whole rift.
And the truth about the original separation, the lost kiss, is finally excavated. Autumn explains she genuinely didn't realize the kiss they shared back then meant anything more than just experimenting.
She was truly that naive.
And that confirmation is devastating for Finny because it validates his deepest fear. He confesses he didn't pursue her all those years because he was terrified that you could tell, you wouldn't want me to love you.
Wow.
He was afraid she was either too naive to understand how he felt, or worse, that she actively rejected him when she joined the clique.
That is just profoundly sad. They were both terrified of the one thing they wanted most. It was the ultimate missed connection, based entirely on youthful misunderstanding and just paralyzing fear.
Because vulnerability is terrifying. For Finny, Autumn was the standard for everything. To offer his love and have it rejected would have just destroyed him. His silence was self-preservation.
It's the tragedy of miscommunication played out over years. But once those walls are down, the floodgates just open.
Finny's confession is defining. It places her at the center of his entire identity. You're the ideal finder. I have judged every other girl by my whole life. I love you. Every other relationship, including with Sylvie, was just a failed measurement against the standard of Autumn.
The intimacy that follows is so unique. When they finally have sex, she begs him to keep going, even when they realize they have no protection. She says, I want the opposite of that.
That is the true breaking of her idealized narrative. She chooses authentic, messy, unprotected love over her guilt's canopy bed fantasy.
And the moment is described as this fusion of their entire history. She closes her eyes and she sees their childhood memories, drawing on each other's backs, watching TV, his hand on the steering wheel.
Reality finally aligns with the ideal, because the ideal is their shared history. It's a reunion of their past selves.
And the plan is immediate. Finny leaves to break up with Sylvie. He promises that after this one step, things are going to be the way they were always supposed to be. He's driving away to sever the last tie of their separation.
And this is where the literary structure just takes a sharp, brutal turn into Greek tragedy. The author chooses to kill him at the moment of maximal commitment. He's sacrificing his current imperfect life for his true destiny with Autumn.
So why do you call that a Greek tragedy structure? Why kill him right then instead of giving them even a few days of happiness?
Because the story is called If He Had Been With Me. The author's priority is the profound, devastating what if, not the happily ever after. In a tragedy, the hero is destroyed by their own virtue. Finny dies because of his virtue, his immediate commitment to making things right.
So if he'd been less committed, if he just stalled.
If he had stayed on the bed and talked longer, the timeline would have shifted. He wouldn't have been on that slick road that night.
So the tragedy isn't the car accident. The tragedy is the timing of his choice. The one action he needed to take to bring them together is the action that killed him.
Precisely. His death is reported as happening more suddenly than I can describe to you or even care to imagine. The details of the crash become irrelevant. The emotional impact is everything.
And the aftermath for Autumn is just this immediate, catastrophic decline. She drops out of college, she stops her medication, she's haunted by the symbolism of dying roses in September.
Yeah, she sees the roses in her mother's garden dying just as their lives were supposed to begin. It's the final nail in the coffin. She embraces the only ending she ever truly believed in.
Her decline culminates in the suicide attempt, and her rationalization is chilling. She goes to the butcher block and decides that if she's determined enough, it won't matter which knife she takes, so she takes the biggest one.
It's a final, desperate embrace of the tragic narrative she always felt destined to write.
She ends up in the hospital, in the locked ward, injured. But in that final, chilling scene, she finds this unsettling peace. She feels, for the first time in years, I feel like things are going to turn out the way they were always meant to be.
It's so disturbing. Her intended destination, her sense of correctness, it only exists in death. It ensures her bond with Finny stays eternal, unbroken by the messiness of real life. For her, the memory of perfect, lost love is more precious than the possibility of an imperfect real life.
So let's synthesize this. We have to look at how her lifelong conflict between reality and the books, between authentic selfhood and a perfect narrative, created the conditions for this tragedy.
She spent years trying to force her life into a stable, safe narrative with Jamie, while her real creative self was longing for Finny. Her inability to accept her true love for him when he was physically present led her to push him away.
It's the ultimate self-sabotage, driven by fear.
She feared her own intensity, her own oddity, and the powerful, undefinable love she felt for Finny, a love she couldn't categorize or manage. By choosing Jamie, she sought perfection to protect herself from chaos, but all she got was emotional numbness.
And the tragic irony is just relentless. The very last thing Finny did was drive away to sever the last ties of their separation, making the sacrifice required for their relationship to finally begin.
And that act of commitment is what killed him, conferring the profound, literal truth of the title. If he had not been driving away to do that, if he had stayed with her, the tragedy would have been averted.
She spent her life writing tragic endings, and when the chance for a happy beginning finally arrived, the universe just intervened to give her the tragic end she always wrote about. And now she internalizes that tragedy as her ultimate truth.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you, the learner, that builds on Autumn's final state of mind. After the suicide attempt, she's in the locked ward, she knows she failed, and she realizes she has to tell lies and wait for a long time to attempt suicide again. She's now actively plotting her next attempt.
So what does it mean that this character, having achieved the ultimate emotional revelation of her life, that Finny loved her completely, that she was worthy of, that love believes her true happiness is only in grief and tragic memory?
It suggests that the idea of Finny, the martyr who died for her, is more manageable and more perfect than the messiness of a shared future ever could have been. She has finally achieved the perfect, eternal, tragic narrative she always longed to write. The story is now complete. The only character development left is closing the book.
A truly chilling and profound analysis of the hidden causality within Ishtilan, if he had been with me. Thank you for providing the source material for this deep dive.
It was a pleasure dissecting the complicated threads of Autumn and Finny's fate.
We'll catch you next time.